Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of Just Another Kill Team podcast, connecting kill team communities across the globe. If you're passionate about the tactical skirmish game that brings together strategy, lore, and creativity, you are in the right place. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and stay updated with our latest episodes. If you want to support the show, check out our Patreon. Your support means a lot to us. Follow us by using the social media links in the podcast description for all the latest news, and be sure to leave a review to let us know what you think. Thanks for tuning in. Here's today's episode. Welcome back, listeners, friends, and everyone else. I assume everyone that is listening to this is either a listener or a friend. We've got John, Can You Roll a Crit, joining us today, fresh off of the Las Vegas Open, crushing everybody with Canoptek Circle.
Hello. How is everyone?
Excellent. Very good.
Yeah, Canoptek Circle. Are they the new metagame, John? Does everyone have to figure out how to beat them? Or do they still have holes, after you've played this big tournament? We want to talk to you a little bit in the Learn to Master format, where we take people through learning how to play a team.
Yeah.
So
And even how
I'm
to
just
kill
curious,
a team.
At first blush, first impressions of the rules. Where were you after the rules came out? Because obviously there's been a lot of talk since then. Obviously you did very well at LVO with an undefeated record, but take us back in time to when the team was first spoiled and your first impressions about them.
Did you think they were going to
So my
be this
first
good?
impression, no. I thought they were like, the problem is when it comes to Necron teams, they're kind of difficult to read for the first few weeks. So that's why when I first read them, I was like, they have play, like accurate 2 is pretty good. Most of their shooting actually hits on 4s and fighting, and their melee presence is kind of weak, and they're kind of dictated by where the matrix was. So I was like, they don't look as strong as you'd think on paper, but they still have like lots of powerful elements. And instead of just having like, when you look at teams, like some teams have like, oh, these are auto ploys. This team has ploys which are more matchup specific. So you've got like 2 what I'd call like dedicated, 2 ploys which are which are good into melee teams. So you've got Soul Drain, which reduces damage, and then you've got the other one which reduces movement. The movement one is more situational because it can also affect shooting teams. But then you go like, okay, so those 2 are 2 ploys which actually I may not spend all the time. And then you've got ceaseless saves and ceaseless shooting, which also means like they're primarily like the ceaseless shooting you're going to use all the time, but the ceaseless defense dice will only really be usable into shooting teams. So because of the meta of how we've got like really powerful melee teams, there's situations where you're not spending like other teams like 3 command points a turn on your strategy ploys. You're probably just spending a max of 2. And they didn't seem as great. That's why I put them like minimum A tier, because I was like, they have strong elements, but I need to see how they play out, because they're a very weird team on paper, and you have to play them to fully understand them. Like I didn't get the Matrix until I just started physically putting the Matrix once I read it, because it's still very vague and no one's actually properly settled on how the Matrix is supposed to be played. Like if the markers can move through walls, they can move through Gallowdark walls, if they move through doors. But yeah, at first I thought they were strong, but not crazy, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So then clearly they're very strong.
Yes.
What was the first thing that got you, that you were like, okay, this is, wow, stronger than I thought?
Well, originally I wanted to play them because originally I was going to stick on Brood Brothers, but then someone was telling people to run Goremongers with like 6 aspirants into me, into Brood Brothers in general. And after playing that at Nova twice, I was like, I cannot play this team competitively because I can't deal with that matchup. And then I was like, I'll play Canoptek because they have really good tools into melee teams. They've got like shooting tricks, and also at the time I was like, everyone's going to be on Death Watch, so I just want to be different. But then the more I looked into them, I was like, oh, you can actually do a lot of crazy things. You have a lot of APL management. So where you need it, you can have everyone on free APL. You've got really useful comms. And not only can your comms give someone +1 APL, but they can also give someone -1 APL, either within free or on your matrix. So you can actually like tag people with your matrix and then make them -1 APL. Or if they move into your matrix, you could just tag them for -1 APL. Your crawlers are really good at just being defensive walls. And then the medic, And then also the leader can just do so much crazy stuff. I think the main problem is it's weird. I've had a lot of conversations with people about this, but command is necessary for the team, but with the certain actions it can loop because it has no restriction. So you can tell someone to do an action they've already done. And you can do crazy things with healing because your medic heals with a 6-inch range for 3D free. And with command, you can have your medic heal, then you can command your medic to heal, then you can counteract command to have your medic to heal, and then you can counteract with the medic to heal. Obviously, the medic would need to be engaged with that. But then also what you can do with your leader is you can have someone go on guard, shoot, then you can command them to go on guard, and then they can shoot again, and then you can counteract and have your leader command to make them go on guard a third time, which is very silly. I think those are the two most problematic interactions, but it's just really useful. Also with their bases, like the crawlers and leader being on 50 mil bases. So I think people get confused by the interaction, but as long as your base is inside of an inch and outside of an inch of heavy, so it's basically as per the core rules, as long as your base is not within an inch of heavy, you can be obscured. Because I think a lot of people get thrown off like, oh, it's just where the targeting lines cross. But if you're touching heavy, and even if where the targeting line touches is more than an inch from where it crosses, the core rules check where the base is in terms of like what part of the base is within an inch to nullify for obscuring. So as long as your base is inside and outside of an inch of heavy, as in like I'm inside of an inch of heavy if I want to be in cover,
Yeah.
but I'm just out on the other side so you can't charge me from the other side, you can sit on engage and effectively be either obscured or in cover constantly unless your opponent just gets within 2 or flush in the open, like on the like basically where the line is flat. So with that, you can do a lot of crazy things, and they're just hyper flexible. I think the problem is people think they're a very fixed playstyle team, but because they have all this APL management and your leaders for APL on the matrix, you can kind of do almost anything you want. So you have all this choice, and the problem is trying to figure out what you want to do.
And how long did it take for you to figure out, in practice? Was this mostly a theory crafting thing, or were there a couple practice games with a couple of your friends locally before you kind of settled on different strategies for them?
So, because I was basically ignoring them up until I finished Nova. So I was chatting with a few people at Nova, and then I had to get the team painted because originally I was going to lock into Brood Brothers, and then I was like, oh no. So I had to figure out a paint scheme for the team first. So then I painted the team, and effectively I only got pre-LVO I only had 11 games in with the team over 2 weeks because I did the London GT the week before LVO, so I did 6 tournament games there. And before the London GT, I had a week of practice of 5 games over like 10 days. And the rest of the time was spent painting and theory crafting. So I actually did way more like just theory crafting, chatting to people and reading because of work. Like, so because I'm an ICU nurse, so I do like 12.5-hour shifts, 14 shifts a month. I do not have enough free time. So I was literally spending my free time theory crafting on breaks or playing fights, then building the team, painting the team, like painting the team as fast as possible, and then started playing the team. So I used the London GT the week before LVO as more practice. So I had 5 games, then I had 6 games of LGT where I was just actually experimenting with which TAC ops to take and learning Approved Ops 2025 more as well, because not only did I need to learn the team, I needed to properly learn the Approved Ops 2025 system. So I was trying to like multitask both. So yeah, I only had 11 games of practice, but most of it was actually theory.
11 games is not the most, but it's not horrible.
Yeah, it's a good amount for you to like have an idea.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is an amazing example of theory crafting can go a long way.
Yeah, because definitely with Canoptek, they play so weirdly that theory crafting helps a lot. And because I theory craft a lot in general, I can use it in ways that are beneficial, knowing like, okay, I can only do this sort of like learning in practical games, but until then, I'll do as much as I can. So, for example, with I showed Travis has some of my screenshots, but for all the approved ops 2025 maps, all the approved ops 2024 maps, and all the LVO maps, I placed for each side, so red and blue side, I did marker placements if I wanted to play defensively or aggressively, not to where I would like always place them, but to give me examples for where I'd like to stage, like to visualize it. Because like the only issue is when you're doing it with the maps, you can't get the 1-to-1 distance. So I was kind of being like giving myself less distance on the example markers I was placing to go like, when it came to the table, if I had over measured, I wouldn't be cheating. So if I'd under measured, I would be more generous to space out. So I did all of that.
This is actually kind of like the crux of the thing that I'm interested in, or that we're interested in for Learn to Master. Before London Grand Tournament, you only had a little bit of practice games, so you had a game plan going into LGT for practice. What worked? Yes. What did you think was going to work before LGT? What did you find out didn't work? And then what did you discover at LGT that ended up working really well?
So what I found was into the mirror, I'd done a lot of prep because I expected, not that everyone would be playing Canoptek, but I have to figure out the mirror. The mirror is so crucial for Canoptek. So I played at round 1 at LGT. There were only 3 Canoptek, and I played one of them round 1. So I had actually taken scout enemy movements because I thought scout enemy movements would actually work into the Canoptek mirror. It's so easy to see the opponent, and you can get around, not trick your opponent, but the thing about doing scout enemy movements, you need to be on conceal, and the opponent has to be ready, but you don't have to be ready. So you can command people to do the scout enemy movement action when someone thinks they're safe. So like what I did in that matchup, I put the medic on like top floor Vocus. It was on the matrix, so I was covering everyone. And then it was doing scout enemy movements, and then I was also commanding it when I had the choices to scout again. So it was scouting 2 different people. So I had one operative doing that. The only problem I found is my opponent was taking envoy and then rushing his envoy up, and I had to like stop him scoring envoy, which then stopped me scoring scout enemy movements. So I learned quickly that I only got 3 points from scout enemy movements. I only won that game by 2 points, just because I banished his Geomancer with a lucky shot from my Canoptek crawler, because he moved his leader outside of medic range, and I was like, well, I have to take this shot to win the game. 1 initiative shot him. Only a single crit went through, knocked his leader down to 8 wounds. And he's like, well, you need to roll a 9. And I was like, okay. So I rolled a 6 and a 3, and I banished his leader, and effectively we won the game. But that was a mad scramble, which I learned I don't want to do, because if that shot had failed, I would have lost the game, because he scored 4 points on envoy, 5 points on envoy. And I only won because I just murdered 3 of his guys. That mattered on the kill up. And then I also learned like Orb is not actually like, when you play the approved ops 2025 mission pack, they do heavily favor teams that out activate you. But if you give yourself opportunities to counteract, so you have people on engage or use command, for missions like Orb, where I thought, Orb, I'm just getting 1 point maximum a turning point against horde teams, I found if I was aggressively staging and I could get enough APL with the matrix, and like crawlers always count as free APL on objectives. So even if they're not on the matrix, they're just free APL for controlling objectives. You can have 2 operatives, 1 on the matrix, 1 a crawler. That's 6 APL on the midpoint. So if someone bounces it to you and then they don't have enough activations or movement to then control the mid again, when you bounce it from your objective to the mid, you can then like counteract and then bounce it to theirs. So last activation, they can either try and scramble to bounce it back, so you're 1 VP each, or they just try and shoot someone because they've mispositioned. So it was like really interesting, because, you know, my first take of Approved Ops 2025 was, oh yeah, if you're activated, you're just like losing the crit up, but it's really not the case. Obviously, it's easier with Canoptek because you can just like command your operatives to do stuff. But even if you can just counteract, being brave with your counteracts can really like offset the issue of being out activated when it comes to those crit ops.
Yeah, because if you're playing defensively, you let your opponent kind of dictate the pace of the match. But having a little bit of proactive pressure helps mitigate some of that, especially on a mission that I've heard people locally say that orb is really, really strong when you're getting out activated. But keeping some guys on the middle so that when it gets shunted over to you means that you can just hold the backline, right?
Yeah, and especially with even elite teams, I was always going into like these teams like our activate, going like, oh, it's fine. But then because Deathwatch can do two different 1 AP actions on counteract, they can actually like really easily, especially on orb, bounce it back to you if you bounce it too early to them, or even if you're in a situation where your last activation you bounce it to them, they can still like switch to engage for a CP, bounce it back to you, and then shoot someone. So there's a lot of teams that can do like either 2 actions or a free action and 1 action on counteract, like with Raveners. And then I also learned with TAC Ops. I played around with Plant Banner. I learned in my Deathwatch game that you have to control the banner to score points from it. So Turning Point 2, I didn't score any points because I was just like, I planted it. I'll get 1 even though you killed my dude. And I was like, oh, yeah. So I don't like Plant Banner because it's too hard to defend like reliably. And yeah, so I was like, I found scout enemy movements wasn't that great, so I do have to apologize. It's really not worth it. It's quite bad. Retrieval's okay. That's solid. Envoy is amazing. Plant Banner is really weird, and I obviously didn't use Martyrs because, in my opinion, it doesn't work with the team well enough because it doesn't work with expendable operatives.
Thanks to differ, but that's fine. It was ruled that it didn't work in LVO, I assume, or for LGT.
It was, LGT. It was ruled expendable doesn't work with Martyr. At LVO, it was.
Yeah. So at LGT, it wasn't part of the game plan because it wouldn't have worked. Obviously, that's not something you're going to test at LGT. So
Yep.
You've discarded a bunch of these. You're going through LGT. At the end of LGT, what sorts of tricks and tactics have you like finalized in your brain of like, oh, these things are good to do between the firefight ploys and the strategy ploys in your tech op selection?
So I basically boiled it down to I either run Retrieval or I run Envoy. So if I out activate you, I take Envoy because Envoy is really easy to score 9 points with. So that's 6 in the primary. And then Retrieval is really solid if you want 4. But if you're aggressive, you can get 5 or 6 on the tac op if you're aggressive with Retrieval, or you're better at APL management than your opponent. I also found that I was happy playing the team fast. So my key learning was in the practice games I was a bit slow, but when I had finished LGT all 6 rounds, I was now very confident playing the team fast. So I clocked myself on most games to the point where obviously like when you start, I'm a bit slower. So I was like 5 minutes behind my opponent, but then towards the end of the game, I was usually 15 to 20 minutes ahead. So it really threw people off when they saw me like just quickly moving my matrix and doing stuff they thought would take a really long time. Me just going like, okay, that goes there, this matrix goes there, still within 6, that's within 6, okay, your turn. And they're just like, oh, let me think about ploys. And they'll go like, okay, I'll do this. I was like, cool, I'm going to do hyper shielding, your turn. Like, because people will think the team does take a lot of time to play, but because I'd managed to get those 5 practice games, all the written prep, and then through LGT, I'd managed to get all of that. I'd learned to be I was too aggressive with my medic, even staging it with the heavy barricade. So I learned to be more cautious with my medic. But otherwise, I was really happy with how I did it LGT because, as I said, I used it to iron out kinks with the team. Because my core goals were just to learn Approve Ops 2025 with LGT, which I did. Maximize tac op selection. So I experimented with some of the missions to see which tac ops were great or not, and then just make sure I could play fast on the clock, which I could.
Yeah, playing fast is definitely important. Sounds like you had definitely the right approach to all that practice. Are you going to stick with Canoptek Circle?
Yeah, probably, because Worlds is unfortunately under a month away. So I won't have enough time to switch. My original goal was to stay on Brood Brothers because I do a lot better when I stick with the team for a long time. But because of the current meta and the way things are, I'm just going to stick with Canoptek. There's too little time for me to pivot to anything else at the moment.
Yeah, that makes sense. What's the scariest thing for Canoptek Circle?
So there are 2 terrifying things: the mirror and Deathwatch, in my opinion. after playing enough games and chatting to enough people, I think there are some teams that do well into Canoptek, like Raveners and what do you call them? Nemesis Claw. Hyrotech, I mean, only if you really miss position with your medic is it a tough matchup. Nemesis Claw can be tough because they can hug you with chain snares, but what Nemesis Claw players quickly learned against me, I would space in such ways where, like, if you put crawlers behind doors, sure, you can double fight me, but you're not charging me, so you're not getting that D3 damage, and also you can't lock me down. And then like I had a Nemcall player like charge my Macrosite Warrior and pass, and I was like, okay, cool, I'm going to command it to fight you, and they were like, okay, well, I get 2 crits and a hit, and they're like, well, I blocked the hit. Okay, you take 8 damage, and they're like, oh, you're not powering me out? I was like, nope. Okay, now I activate the crawler. Are you going to try and I activate the warrior? Are you going to try and fall back? It's like, no, we're fighting to the death, and they're like, oh, well, no. So I roll up my dice, I get another crit. You have to kill me because otherwise I'll kill you. So then they kill me and then I blow up and kill them. It's great. So Nemesis Claw wasn't a problem for me. And then Raveners. Raveners is weird. I've chatted to Travis a lot about this, but I don't know what it is about Ravener players, but a lot of them don't have any plan if you stay away from their tunnels. Like I've talked to Ravener players and like, oh yeah, I'm on my tunnel. This is going to be great. And I was like, okay, but what if they're not on your tunnels? Oh, they're going to give me the crit up. And I was like, okay. Because, the cool thing about Canoptek is your markers can control points. So if they've got no Ravener on the point, you're controlling that crit up objective. And then also I can just send a dude in and just have it command, counteract, or like command and fight to the death. Because I don't care if a warrior dies. If you try and charge target, I'm going to make it do as much damage until you kill it. But the big issue is the mirror. The mirror is very tough. And I find the mirror... I would advise always chest clock in the mirror because it will go to time. So it's not like, oh, you need an advantage against the opponent. It's more so like you will both get into like analysis paralysis because you're probably both going to take retrieval, and it's going to come down to what the crit up is and what board you're playing. And then Deathwatch are really terrifying because I think people forget, like, yeah, Soul Drain is really good at the -1 damage and the crawlers can heal back to life. The only problem is if someone charges them and they have like lethal 4 up or 5 up, or they have brutal and they can double fight, even with Soul Drain, like you're just going to kill a crawler in 2 fights. Like in one of my practice games, I accidentally left one of my crawlers too aggressively next to a stronghold door, and it was charged by the Deathwatch Sergeant, and I was like, oh, it's okay, I've got a Soul Drain up and I've got just a scratch, it's fine. The first attack, he rolls 2 crits, 3 hits, and like bludgeons me down to 9 wounds because I did accurate 2 and I rolled no crits. And then it fought me again and rolled 4 crits and just murdered me. And I was just like, wow, it's dead. Even if I just a scratch, it's just dead. So it's like you really have to respect that because Deathwatch can push through so much damage. Like the Blade Master is terrifying because it has brutal and lethal 5 up and blocks first if it wishes to. You've got the leader who has a power weapon. I mean, if they take, I think it's the Demolisher. What's the guy with the Thunder Hammer? If they take the Thunder Hammer and it's fighting, it's got brutal, so it's just going to mess you up. And like the Aegis is annoying. The Plasma is terrifying because it can be lethal 5 up rending or even lethal 5 up blast. So those are the 2 most terrifying matchups. One, because the mirror is just really weird. And the second is because Deathwatch have the damage to easily punish you. And especially with their ability to do 2 actions on counteract, you actively don't want to use your delay and activation ploy because it just gives them more actions to use against you.
Yeah, very interesting. I mean, do teams like... So Deathwatch is tough, but like... Angels of Death, have you played or thought about that matchup at all?
Not really, because I wouldn't be too scared of Angels of Death because if they push up, like the other thing that I'm not too scared about with Angels of Death is the cool thing is sometimes I'll let a Marine charge my leader if they're just like not a crazy melee specialist, or even if they are, because the leader has stun, severe shock in melee. So if they charge me first activation and fight, and they don't have any way to like proc lots of crits, I will tank that fight to just make them only do 1 charge action, 1 fight action, because the moment I retain that crit, they go down to 2 APL. So you can actually kind of trap Marines in combat and catch people off guard. Not that you're like not telling them. Like I always tell my opponent, look, I have severe stun shock in melee. Are you sure you want to charge me? And like at the start of the game, and they go, yeah, and they're like, okay. So we charge and fight. You've got like I've retained 2 hits. I rolled 1 hit, so I've got a crit and 2 hits. You've got 3 hits. I'll just to scratch 1. You're -1 APL, so you can't fight me again. And then just go, oh. And then I either kill them or I fall back and blast them.
Strong. You guys, I'm jumping in with a quick advertisement. If you are listening to this and you're planning to go to the New York Open and you haven't bought your tickets already, do it now. Log in right now. We've got a link in the description of the show notes and get your tickets to the New York Open, and we'll see you there. Same thing for the Renegade Open. New York Open is coming up October 18th weekend, and November 22nd is the weekend of Renegade Open in Minnesota. Grab your tickets. See you there.
All right, so you've got a couple game plans. You mentioned you've got your TAC op plan situated after LGT. You know, if you're out activating someone, you're going to envoy, send a dork into enemy territory, go get those points because he hasn't been hit. You're playing, what was the other one for when you're getting out activated? Retrieval for when you're getting out activated. So that's the game plan for LVO. Talk us through, you know, some of the high points for your games. Obviously, you know, you won all of your games, which is great, but there must have been a couple games somewhere along the way where you felt like it was going to be a little bit closer. And what kind of tricks or tips did you find out in those games that you didn't think about before going to LVO?
So my toughest 2 games, well, I had 3 tough games. So the first one was against Dan from Goonhammer. He was running his Nemesis Claw, and he was actually, until he played me, he was undefeated on Nemesis Claw, and he was having a really good run. He had just actually beaten Canoptek by 1 point. We were hoping we wouldn't play each other, but we did on Gallo Dark. So he had more of an advantage to me because on Gallo Dark, I have to open doors. So there's risk assessment if I want to like open a door to connect my matrix or move my matrix. But I basically, he sacrificed his melter to install device on my objective, on my home objective, because it's so close to the center line on Gallo Dark. And then he was actually really good at zoning me out. Like we were both zoning each other out, but he was covering as well with his ranged operatives, but also the ventriloquist. So I had to respect him for that, because otherwise he can like dash me off the matrix, make me -1 APL. If his melee specialists do touch me, they will probably kill a crawler double fighting, mainly like the Screecher, because I don't get any rerolls, and it will basically be lethal 4-up, so it will just murder a crawler if it charges it. But I was able just to get lucky kills he wasn't expecting, because he was on guard a lot of the time on obscured because it had midnight clad, or going into risky positions further away where I could shoot him, but he'd be in cover obscured. And then I was just like, we're in Vegas, we're gonna shoot. And then I like had a crawler over 2 turning points, killing his fearmonger, and then just getting lucky kills. Like what swung at turning point 3 was he had left my warrior alive in combat. So I activated, his leader had 5 wounds left, and he basically needed me to not roll a crit. So I rolled a crit first activation to fight his leader down to 1 wound. He had to kill my crawler immediately, and then I blew up on rolling a 3. So I like blew up his leader, but that was really tough because I could only kill his ventriloquist my last activation. So throughout the game, he actually managed to sack a guy to open the door, so his ventriloquist was in range, to make sure my banishment gun never had a shot, because he made it -1 APL and dashed it off the matrix. So he made it burn its teleport by dashing it off, and then counteracted to give it -1 APL. So he kind of kept his room safe. So it forced me to like teleport the Geomancer into there. Then, because that was a game I only won by 3 points, because he had installed my objective. He got 6 on the crit op. 6 on the tac op. I got 6 on the tac op. I was only ahead on the crit op by 1 or 2, and then I was ahead on the kill op by 1. So that was actually really close. then into Jason, the other Canoptek. Well, there was 6 Canoptek players in total, but there were 5 in my pod. So me and Jason played round 5 on day 2 because we were the only undefeated. Round 6 because we were the only undefeated players left in A pod. And basically, we were on a new Squad Games LVO map, which is very tough for Canoptek because the center room has no side doors apart from one. So I won the roll-off, and this is a map I had like religiously read because I was like, this map is so hard for Canoptek. I won the roll-off and took that side. And the only thing that broke the deadlock in the mirror is because Jason only had one Canoptek warrior on his closest point that was behind a breachable door. So he breached it and moved a warrior on. I had staged with a marker and 2 warriors. So I had one with free APL from a comms and one with 2 APL. So free APL from the Matrix. So I won initiative. Well, he gave it to me. So I opened the door, blasted that dude away. And so he just left it because he thought it was safe. So then I immediately like breached in, booped the objective and retrieved it because we were playing data. And that immediately swung it to me turning point 2 because it meant I had built a wall of barricades on my left-hand objective. So it meant from the TACOP alone, he was running retrieval, but he could only get a maximum of 4, whereas now I would get a minimum of 5 on retrieval. So even if he killed that guy and stopped me getting that marker, he would only get 2 on the primary, I would get a 3. So if the game ended there on TACOPs alone, he would be on 6, 4 and 2 from the primary. I would be on 8, it was 5 plus 3. So already I was ahead. Like I was projected to win that game if we just stalemated. So then he had to gamble, which ended up costing his my isolator killed his isolator, turning point 3. And then it turned into a mad scramble in the room, which allowed my leader, just to start blasting, killing his comms and his other crawler. But if he didn't, because I got that early advantage with retrieval, if I hadn't done that, it would have been a really weird stalemate. So that was a really tough game. And it basically boiled down to me winning the right side, but also me being very lucky with getting retrieval early, which kind of dictates the mirror. And then the other game, which was really tough, which was streamed, was round 8 into Zeke Kelly. So that was really tough into his Death Watch. It was a really back and forth game. And because I've learned to respect Death Watch, I really do disagree with people saying Death Watch aren't a viable team competitively at the top end. It's like, this is a bit of a tangent, but I was like, look, we had 3 months of Raveners proving that you can still win and dominate the meta being 5 operatives. Why are we doing this again with Death Watch? But as I said, Death Watch have the damage to check Canoptek. So I learned from LGT I was being too aggressive, even with my activating bonus into Death Watch. You have to respect them. So that's why I built a wall of terrain around my objective. I was like, look, you're never getting to my objective in 1 turning point. It's going to take you 2 turning points. And if you get to my objective, you're in a position where I can get within 2 and shoot you and then command and shoot you. So if you want to get to my objective on the orb, you got to get through my wall and getting shot. So I played very defensively. I didn't leave my drop zone until turning point 4, halfway in the turning point 4. But it was a really fun, tight game. Like the Zeke was a great like sportsmanship. Like he's so good despite being so young. And it was like really nice that we were both very honest about intentions, like warning each other about what we could do. So it was a very fair game. It was really fun for me and tense because in the last 3 activations of the game, so I had 2 minutes on the clock. Zeke had 3. And I was like, okay, I need to calculate the state of the board because I don't know where the scores are. So I did ask Dakota if we could like pause the clocks just so I can calculate the scores for us both. And he said no. So I was like, okay, we're just scrambling, boys. So my leader went to engage, went onto the Matrix.
To be fair,
blasted
Dakota, that seems pretty reasonable. You know, you can't.
Yeah, no, that's completely right. Yeah.
Of times like when you guys are in the heat of the moment. So it's an interesting situation, and it's always good to ask. You know, one of those things. You know, double check with your TO, but it seems like a pretty fair call.
Yeah. No, I completely get with it. I just wanted to check with him first before, like, instead of just pausing and cheating. So I asked him on my time and he said no. So I was like, okay, we scrambling, boys. So my leader went on engage, blasted his 3 guys, killed the Blade Master, then quaked because I managed to. the interesting thing about the blast attack is it's 1 free damage, stun, blast 2. Normally you want an accurate 2 to maximize hits. I wanted the stun because I had Ceaseless. I was just fishing for crits. So that's why I refused to, retain for hits, because it's more beneficial for me to just fish for crits to stun. So I pushed through like 4 crits into the Blade Master and killed him. I stunned his Vox Breaker, bringing it down to 7. Then I hit his Aegis down to 4 wounds and quaked it down to 1. Then my comms, who I assumed was going to die, survived 2 shots from the Vox Breaker and 2 shots from the Aegis because I just kept rolling crits. It then charged and killed the Aegis. And then my last activation was passing with the medic, and then with 3 seconds to spare, I repositioned and dashed my envoy into the midline to win by 2. But it was like a crazy scramble because I didn't know the board state. Me and Zeke didn't know who was going to win that game, so we both just like did a mad scramble in the middle because I think he was confident just piling into the middle because he had bounced the orb onto my objective. But during my games at LGTM practice, I realized you only score points for orbs for objectives you control, and he had no one on his objective. So already I was like, at most he's getting 1 on the crit op. He got 2 last turn. I got 2 the turn before. So it'll just be 1 ahead on the crit op. I just need to maximize kills. And yeah, it was just a really fun, hectic scramble because I didn't know if I was going to win or lose. So I was just like playing on instinct to maximize as much killing as I could do. And so was he.
Those tend to be some of the most fun games.
Yeah, it was absolutely wild because it was funny because people were like, oh yeah, why didn't you guys do this? Why didn't you guys do that? And we're like, look, we barely had any time left, and we were like rushing, not because we were playing slow, but we had to respect each other because if someone made a mistake, it would cost them the game. Like I was playing carelessly and just like commanded my crawler 2 inches forward, turning point 2, and accidentally put it within an inch of my medic, and then by the process of fate, I was half an inch out of Zeke being able to counteract 2 inches, switch to engage, and plasma blast, ignoring, obscuring into my spider and killing my medic, which would have won him the game. Like the only reason that didn't work was by some miracle, I was just not visible from whatever angle he took. Like we even picked up the terrain that was intervening, and there was like, he was literally like half a millimeter out of actually seeing the crawler. So it was like a really hectic but fun game.
Also hopping in again to let you know that Crossfire Games is super sick. The battle box is amazing, and you can order one using the link in the show notes.
All right, so those are some pretty tense games at LVO. You said that you're going to be playing the team at Worlds. Are there any tricks that you like? Do you feel like you've figured some extra stuff out, or is this just that you're going to go to Worlds and play cleaner than you've played? You know, is there anything that you were willing to talk about as far as like secret Canoptek techs? Like what stuff have you felt like over this entire run has ended up being something you always do? Like, is there a firefight ploy you always use? Is there a strategy ploy you always use? Or is there like an operative setup that you're always positioning for? Like, is the matrix line a long line that is keeping your medic safe in the back line? Or is it the great obelisk wall across the middle of the board?
So it's going to be really annoying, but it absolutely differs every game. As I said, the problem is when I was like trying to read, like usually I check out Discords for help just to like guide myself or just see how other people are playing. But I found the information so bad that I just like retreated just to talking to people I trusted. Because the problem is there's no fixed way to play the team. But if you listen to online, everyone's like, oh, you sit back, you don't move out of your drop zone. You don't do that. Like you don't move up. But you can actually do it both ways. You can be hyper aggressive and hyper defensive. I think the best way to describe it is like how me and what's his name? Me and Orion play Gallopbox. Like everyone's like, oh, Gallopbox are just a rush down team, but you can actually play them very defensively. You can be, because they're technically a stat check team, you can kind of do the same with Canoptek. So they're a very flexible team. I think my biggest takeaway is that now I'm very comfortable playing the team fast. So it's like, obviously, when it comes to the World Championship of Warhammer, we get more time to play our games. That isn't the biggest issues, but I still always aim to finish my games within 2 hours. And now I'm just more comfortable with playing Approved Ops 2025, because not only was I trying to learn the team, but I was trying to learn that system. So the biggest thing I learned was actually when to go for turning point 3 initiative and when to go for turning point 4, because technically, if you're chatting to like competitive players, they're like, oh, you want to win initiative turning point 3, so you want to lose the row turning point 2. And originally I agreed with that, but then I was looking at like there's missions like data. Data is hold on, let me pause because there's a huge dump truck coming past. Hear it?
So, just so that people can follow along, instead of having like specific plays from the Canoptek that you found particularly powerful over these last, it sounds like 15 or 16 games of, tournament play and practice games. Now you're really honed in on actually playing the actual archetypes and the tech ops,
Yes.
because there's a big change in this edition on scouting has been vastly reworked in that now you're just rolling dice the whole way down, but you can fix your initiative a little bit. So after all these games, you have slowly come around to fighting over turning point 3 instead of turning point 2.
Well, it actually depends. So, for example, when it comes to missions like data, you actually want initiative turning point 4, but most of the people I played, well, they were all like, oh, I want initiative turning point 3. So I was like, yeah, cool. You've won the role. I get +3 to my initiative, and then I win initiative turning point 4. I boop the middle one. I get 2 points, and then I get a guaranteed 4, like that turning point. So there's actually
some of the missions. Some missions actually score differently depending on turns 2, 3, and 4. So,
yes.
For example, uploading for data is worth more later on, right?
Right?
Yes. I know at least one of the missions.
Yes, I think it's not data. It's the other one, but I know what you're coming from. Is like there's weird missions where you want to go first, turning point 2 and 4, but then there's a lot of missions where you want to go first, turning point 3, and it's learning that the initiative system isn't fixed. Because like even myself, I was like, oh yeah, I want to win turning point 3. That's the crucial point of the game, and it's like not actually based on what crit ops you're playing. And then also the key thing I learned with equipment, it was just like, so Canoptek have great equipment, but as you said, you only get 4 choices now, so you have to be quite tight. But what I learned is you always take the heal. You never go home without the D3 heal. You always want the matrix manipulator, so your leader counting as the 4th node, because that allows you to be really aggressive, or if you've messed up playing too defensively with your leader and you're out of position, because especially when you activate your leader last, you pop matrix manipulator, at least when your leader activates, then it will be in the matrix for that purpose, and then you can correct in the strategy phase and so on. So those are the 2 auto includes. If I want to like delay activations, someone with 8 or more activations, I would always take the D3 awakened nodes, so activate your nodes instead of activating. And then the 4th slot, I would actually never take the piercing equipment, because I was like, look, there are 3 situations where my Geomancer is getting shot, especially by piercing 1 weapons. 1, my opponent is shooting my leader with torrent or blast. 2, I've mispositioned my leader heavily. Or 3, I'm out of command points. So basically all those 3 things are errors that you can correct for, apart from blast and torrent. But even then you can correct that by not exposing your leader too much, because there's a lot of times you want to take 2 light barricades to slow down your opponent, or even light barricades and a razor wire, or a heavy barricade for staging. So it's like that 3rd slot, the 4th slot is always going to be either light barricades, heavy barricade, or razor wire. So that was something I quickly learned, because like you kind of assume, oh yeah, ignoring piercing on my leader is great. But when you think about it, your leaders never should be getting shot, especially with Get Down, Mr. President.
Yeah, because you can always shunt it over to an expendable operative. So as long as you're playing the positional game the whole time, you have a little bit of safety, so that frees up for your equipment.
Well, yeah, and you also have your medic. So it's like your medic also has to have already, for some reason, triggered on someone else. So there's lots of like holes in the Swiss cheese for this to fail, for your leader to get shot and then die, which is usually stuff you can prevent. But that's why I'm so terrified of Death Watch, because they can currently give their 5 attack plasma blast and get down, Mr. President. But that's like a matchup specific thing.
There are some other teams with sneaky blast threats. Brood Brothers come to mind as a team that can sneak a dude into your back line if you're not paying attention. But luckily for you, you've played a lot of these kind of sneakier, wider teams. So you've got some of the mindset to play against those. And is that a thing that you're looking at? So after playing all these events, where do you feel like the TACOP deck lies? Like, are you happy with your two choices? Do you feel like there's a couple other choices after, Vegas that you're looking into now?
There's still experimentation with Plant Banner, but Plant Banner is the cool thing you can do with Canoptek with Plant Banner is you can score it with your obelisk nodes. Because the wild thing is, I only realized when I was playing LVO, your markers, even if they're not connected to the matrix, can control and contest objectives and markers as long as there's no enemy operatives in control range. And they don't even have to be linked for you to do mission actions through them. So you can do crazy stuff like you can yeet a marker up, plant banner with it, like in an open room, just with an obelisk node marker, and then your opponent has to like stand in the open on a marker that's suddenly planted a banner, and then they just go like, I'm contesting your marker, and then you just go banish, right? So there's some experimentation with that. But generally, I'm happy with either Retrieval or Envoy. I did play Martyrs once in LVO to just go like, I might as well see how this goes. So I played it on, I think, round 1, but I didn't take it as my primary. I took the crit up as primary, and I only scored 4 points for Martyrs. And it didn't
notably,
really work
the
out
reason why this was like the big question mark and why you didn't do it at London Grand Tournament is that Martyrs was ruled at the LGT that expendable operatives can't martyr. But technically, the way that Martyrs is written right now, expendable operatives are allowed for Martyrs. So at LGT or
Yes.
at LVO, you were able to test it. And in the end, you still liked Envoy and Retrieval a little bit more because they gave you a little bit more control over when you were going to score.
Yeah, because none of my bloody warriors, none of them died on my home object. Like, no, I put one in the mid, and then my opponent just like, I'm going to respect you and stay away. And inside, I was like, no, charge it and kill it. Because the one that I sent into the home objective on his side died, and I was like, well, there's no way I'm getting that to turning point 3 or 4. And I know after I was like, look, Martyrs, even if it would work for the team, I don't think is that efficient, especially if like you're playing a cagey thing. So I only used that once. That wasn't really that great. Scout enemy movements I will unfortunately never use. It's just it's too defensive for what it gives. And the problem I found, if your opponent just goes like, okay, I'm just going to rush you down, you're going to run out of abilities to really maximize scoring on that. So yeah, I'm kind of happy with my TAC ops. The other thing I developed, which I thought other Canoptek players did, but they haven't, because I was discussing it with some of them at LVO. I like to form my Canoptek raiding party. So that consists of my Gorse Crawler, my Comms, and Warrior. So I usually send them to my home objective, and because off the matrix, so the Comms is just sitting there giving them +1 APL. And then what I'll do is go like, okay, turning point 3 or 2, the warrior is going to go on a journey. He's either going to be my envoy, he's going to steal a point, or he's going to go on a retrieval mission and then probably not come back alive. And then you have a warrior there. And especially on some of the crit ups, like State Claim, where on State Claim, you don't actually need to stay on your home objective. You just need to control more objectives. So especially if you're playing hyper aggressively, you can go like turning point 2, I'm going to control my objective. You do that. Turning point 3, you say you control mid. So then you can go away from your home objective, threaten your opponent's objective because they're going to try and fight over the mid, which you can quite easily control. So then you can State Claim and control more just from one objective, or like if you're controlling your opponents. And then you have not only a warrior going on a raid, you have a crawler going on a raid, because even though it's movement 5 and it can be slowed down, when there's avenues where, because people expect it to come to you, but when it suddenly pivots going right or left to the mid with 3 APL going reposition 5 dash 3 into someone's face, getting within 2, they'll go like, oh, I didn't think it was that fast. I was like, yeah, it's going on a raid. So you could do like really fun stuff with that. Shout outs to my warriors. There's like, the crazy thing about the warriors, if they die, it's great, because then they can come back, and because they come back as a new operative, they can be a new envoy target. But the funniest thing is I had like at least in half of my games, these warriors living on like 2 wounds, 3 wounds, like tanking fights, tanking shots. In my Aquilin game, I played Aquilins round 3. I just sacrificed. I let a warrior go on a raiding party to get retrieval on my opponent's home objective. So with free APL, it breached, retrieved, breached teleport, retrieved the objective, and then did data. And then I was like, yeah, it's in the open behind your light barricade on conceal. The grenadier got from above, cracked it down to 2 wounds, and then it took 6 more obscured shots that turning point because it was behind. Because where that light barricade was, where the light terrain was on the inside the stronghold, it was more than 2 inches from the heavy wall, but the wall was there to obscure me. So I was obscured and in cover. So this warrior lived on 2 wounds against 6 different shooting attacks, just either auto-retaining 2 hits or a crit to live. And I think I broke my opponent's will. But the thing is just like these warriors, they either come back glorious heroes or they get avenged by their endless brothers.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Warriors being fully expendable and returnable is always going to be good. Was there any opponents, or have there been any play styles that have given you particular pause, or teams that you're worried about? Now that you've played Canoptek for so long, are there any matchups that you're actually worried about, especially coming into Worlds?
Mainly Deathwatch and the Mirror, because Deathwatch can quite quickly shoot my bugs to death from afar. So you have to respect them, because a smart Deathwatch player will double kill a bug. Because you don't mind losing 1, but losing 2 in a turning point is annoying, and losing 3 is really quite bad because you can only bring back 1. So you ideally want to throw away 1. And like Deathwatch are just very good damage checks. I've played into a lot of hordes at LGT, and I found I'm not too scared about those because the warriors just turn into beasts. And then the mirror's quite weird because you have to be careful with your positioning, because if they breach their warriors can like quickly get to either like your comms, your medic, or even your own leader. Like I had my warrior accidentally shoot a Canoptek Geomancer down to 2 wounds because it just rolled 4 crits in a shot. Like really unlikely, but it did that. He made no saves and went down to 2 wounds. And I was like, oh wow, yeah, if you don't go heal the medic, I can charge with my next warrior and kill it. So he had to like pivot his entire game plan around that. So you have to respect that. Or I also am worried about mandrakes. Mandrakes are a big problem for the team because mandrakes are quite weird with how they interact. And you don't want to start feeding them warriors because they'll send in, I think it's their chooser of the flesh.
Yeah, chooser of the metallic parts in this matchup.
Yeah, he'll just keep farming them and start giving people +1 APL, which then becomes really problematic. Even though, hilariously enough, your leader with 4 APL will just like tank all their shots. It's still not something you want to do. I know people are talking about Felgor, but I generally don't think Felgor has play into the team. I can see where people are coming from, but after I've played enough games, I just don't think it's doable, especially when you do stuff like slowing people down with the Matrix for a CP. It really messes stuff up, especially I think people underestimate how fast you can move the Matrix. But it's more so it's just trying to figure out when you need to be defensive and be aggressive and not overextend in either ways. Because when I was looking back at my first Deathwatch game, I was too aggressive both times. And I think in this Deathwatch game, I was too defensive. I mispositioned my Matrix thinking about my game in Zeke. I should have just ignored the Matrix on my objective. I should have put it in the mid to the right-hand side covering the stronghold, so I could have done some aggressive staging there. But it's really weird because of how fluid the game is at the moment. You can't. It's like catch-22. Oh yeah, my Matrix would have been better if I put it there, but it's difficult to gauge because especially when you get into higher level kill team, you're playing more the player than just the team, so it's really difficult to gauge in that regard.
How are things back home?
Oh yeah, I'm currently in California, so I'm in California for a bit, and then I think I get back mid next week, so I have about 2.5 weeks to maybe get a game or 2 in, and then I'm back for Worlds.
Quite a bit of travel. Not making it to New York Open this time?
No, I'm really gutted. I tried to, but work wouldn't let me book the week of New York Open off. They only gave me the week of Las Vegas and then the end of October, which wouldn't have worked, unfortunately. I'm really annoyed I'm missing New York Open. I wanted to go. I would have been 3 years in a row. You know, it's really fun. I'm really upset at myself that I can't go.
Yeah, definitely is a bummer. Here's a thought that maybe I'll edit out of the podcast. What if the New York Open became the new awesome January event?
Oh yeah, come on, Travis, that'd be so cool. There's a prime slot there.
It's
Somebody's got to
definitely
do it.
something that we've thought about, but that's for a different podcast, another day.
If it helps, I've got a lot of Canadian fellows who'd be interested.
You know what? On that note, listeners, if you're interested in a January event, but potentially being the New York Open, throw that in the comments too.
And I guess, until that comes, John, thanks for coming on and talking about Canoptek. I'm sure everybody who follows Kill Team content at this point knows where to find John, but John, you want to give a little shout out to your YouTube and anything else, your local tournament scene if you want?
Oh yeah, you can find me at Canyarola Crit on anything with Canyarola Crit. And then yeah, just shout out to everyone who helped me. So it's like it was a multitude of people. Like spoke to Travis, yourself a lot, as well as a lot of my American friends and UK friends. So without any of you guys' help, I wouldn't have been able to come even close to what I did at LVO. So I know a lot of people like to say, oh, it's still a singular thing, but it's always a group effort whenever I could try or whenever I do win these events. And there's also just shout out to my local London scene, of course, because, without the LGT and like the London Grand Tournament and those local, like we did a practice day the weekend before the London GT, where we just played 3 games, but like just in a pseudo tournament format. Without all of their help, I never would have been able to do what I did last weekend.
Takes a village and a little bit of rolling crits.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think they stopped counting my crits because at one point, I think in the game with Zeke, I did something crazy. I think I rolled like 20 crits over 2 turning points or something like that. It was just really, like, that's why I thought I'd lost that game, because when he shot the medic, when he shot the comms, he was in the open. I was like, oh yeah, comms is dead. So I just adjusted the kill up score. And I was like, oh yeah, I rolled my defense dice. Oh, it's just 3 crits. It is like, oh, I've got 2 hits. It's just 2 crits. I just lived. I needed to believe more. It wouldn't give me out.
You heard it here first, friends. He can roll a crit. Never give up. Trust the dice gods.
Never surrender. Oh gosh, yeah. Concealed dice are OP.
Well, as usual, thank you, listeners, for listening.